Hello and welcome to episode 118 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. Of course, I am your host, Rick Doherty. Happy Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with all of you. To celebrate, I'll be joined by Steven from the YouTube channel, A Life in the Parks. He was lucky enough to experience the Star Wars Celebration weekend in London last month. We're going to talk about the weekend and other Star Wars topics on the show today. I am going to be 100% honest. A lot of you are probably expecting some Star Wars Day vlogs from Disney's Hollywood Studios over the next few days on the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Well, after my wife Courtney took off work for May the 4th last year and we both had our park reservations for months, I felt the atmosphere of the day was kind of a dud. With the exception of some special merchandise and a few treats, there really wasn't a lot there for us. I have much preferred the atmosphere for Life Day at Hollywood Studios, so I basically just decided to skip May the 4th in 2023. There is something big happening today that has me excited, however. Carrie Fisher is being honored posthumously with a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. That is so well deserved. Before we get started, I did want to mention one other thing about the Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty YouTube channel. Of course, the podcast is available on Stitcher, Podbean, and YouTube. Well, last week's episode, when Sarah Says and I finished our discussion on Epcot's World Showcase, that actually became our most listened to episode on YouTube. We had broken that record before the show was even online for 48 hours. Everyone who puts in the hard work to make this podcast a success is overwhelmingly grateful for the support we've received for the past 118 weeks. I don't think any of us knew we would be this successful. Please make sure to subscribe to the channel because it really does help us continue to grow. As a matter of fact, this past Sunday marked the 4-year anniversary of my first day as a Walt Disney World annual pass holder. It's kind of left me feeling nostalgic for the way being an AP has changed my life for the better. There is no way I start this podcast without that much access to the parks. There's no way that I become such close friends with Sarah Says, Marissa, the Sarah Enigma, Jillian, Christina, Kiki, Jeff, Steven, and other members of the community you've heard on the show multiple times. There are also some great people like Ken, Ty, Carmen, Natalie, Jay, Haley, Scott, Sean, Amanda, and so many more who've not been on the show or haven't been on a lot, who are nonetheless big parts of why I'm so happy to have had these experiences in the parks. If I didn't mention you, I haven't forgotten you. I just don't always know who wants to be mentioned in these ways and who would rather not have a fuss made. All of my park people are wonderful. Right now, it's time to get this show started by welcoming Steven from A Life in the Parks back to the podcast. Thanks for being here, Steven.
Hey, Rick. Good to be back as always.
So for anybody who doesn't know your YouTube channel, A Life in the Parks, why don't you give them sort of an overview of what your channel usually looks like, even though we're going to talk about something a little different today?
Yeah, usually I do sort of theme park stuff, so a lot of retro theme park stuff. Got videos going back from the 80s all the way up to last year when I went to Disneyland. I also do a lot of just general travel stuff around the UK and cruising, where I've been cruising sort of out of America and out of the UK too.
And obviously you mentioned the UK. I think people who are just hearing your voice know that you live in England.
Yep.
And you had some big stuff happening in England recently, and that was Star Wars Weekend, which happened in London, and you had a chance to go. So your YouTube channel, which focuses very heavily on retro stuff, especially when it comes to Disney, actually has something very, very recent that is on there, and that's you talking about Star Wars Weekend and experiencing Star Wars Weekend. So why don't you tell everyone what they can expect to see in some of those vlogs?
I'll be honest with you, the first thing is the crowds. Star Wars Celebration was absolutely wild. There were so many people there. I went when it was held in London in 2016. It was busy. In 2023, it is something completely different. I heard rumours up to 40,000 people a day there. And if there wasn't, it sure felt like there was. There was huge displays of like TIE fighters and sort of AT-ATs or AT-ATs. I never know which way to go. Yeah, I think it may be an age thing. Obviously, there was lots of stands and merchandise, as you'd imagine, because that's kind of what the thing that really put Star Wars on the map. Meet and greets and autographs, those type of things. There was just a lot going on, and of course, big announcements for what's coming down the line in terms of movies and new shows on Disney Plus too.
So what was the general vibe like there? Obviously, we were all following along on social media, but we could only react to the news as we saw it by ourselves or maybe with one or two other people. You were there with potentially 40,000 other people when they were announcing new shows, new movies, and Star Wars Lucasfilm had sort of hit the pause button post Rise of Skywalker when it came to movies. Were people just thrilled to be getting this news?
I spoke to so many different people, friends that I'd actually been to Star Wars Celebration with back in 2016, and then it was excitement, but it was quite narrow because it was all about Rogue One and very much about Rogue One. And for me, that was kind of my era, and I'm thinking this was, where I want to be excited about. Whereas now, there was Disney Plus has completely changed the atmosphere of Star Wars and Star Wars Celebration too. And definitely the people that were there. I think last time it was mainly British people. It still lent sort of more middle-aged, younger people. This time, far more international. So many Americans I spoke to there, and definitely skewing much, much younger. And I think that's Disney Plus for you.
Yeah, Disney Plus has changed the game when it comes to Star Wars, because now, it used to be a big event. You would go, people would famously dress up in costume and wait in line to go see these movies. But now, a show like The Mandalorian or The Book of Boba Fett, they can just put these shows out every couple of months, really, and put them on Disney Plus, and they only have to be 6 episodes. Like, they don't have to create this huge marketing scheme around everything they do Star Wars now. So it has really, really changed the game.
Yeah, and I think for me is that Star Wars, the original sort of trilogy of movies, it was very sort of, space pirates and all this sort of stuff. Whereas what Disney Plus can do is your world building. And take a show like Andor. Now, I know it got a lot of criticism for it was slow paced. And you know what? I don't need it to be fast and buzzy. I've got 12 weeks. I can watch a show like that and immerse myself in that world. And I think that we were there for the Andor announcement of season 2. And people were going wild for it. Now, I know that's not necessarily the general population who might have not been it, but for Star Wars people, that was definitely the TV series coming. That was the one people were so excited about.
That's a good point you make on Andor and people saying that it was slow, but that is something that Disney Plus gives you as an advantage, something that they can do, kind of take their time. I know we all remember the jokes from The Rise of Skywalker when that came out, and that had to be a big $1 million making blockbuster movie. So it was somehow Palpatine returned. Now they have jetpacks. We're on this planet. We're on that planet. We're here. We're there. And everything was going so fast. And I'm not putting down The Rise of Skywalker, but you get different types of storytelling that you can do when you have these different platforms. So everything doesn't have to be, now they have jetpacks and we're moving here and we're moving here. Now we can sort of savor a story and savor situations because it doesn't have to make $1 billion when you put it on Disney Plus. It just has to get enough viewers, and there are always going to be, at least for the foreseeable future, enough Star Wars viewers to make a Disney Plus show successful.
Those shows are just going to be going for decades and decades. They just know. Like, I'll be honest with you, I still can't believe that Disney World is great, and I've been to Galaxy's Edge. I love all that. Both sides. Look at the world you've created. Just build a park. It doesn't have to be now, but that you've got so much you could do. Fifth Gate, we've spoken about villains parks and all of this. Just do Star Wars. You will fill it day after day. People would go wild for that as well. They just would.
As they continue to build out this already pretty fleshed out universe, it would become more and more possible. I know that a few months ago, I was talking to my co-host Marissa, and she has like these very detailed plans to bring the Forest Moon of Endor to the other side of Hollywood Studios so that you could like blanket both sides. Like, it's just her own idea. Like, she's not an Imagineer. She doesn't work for Disney or anything. But she wants a land speeder ride that is similar to Hagrid's motorbike over in Universal, which she also thinks that the Forest Moon idea would be great at Hollywood Studios because it gets so hot. It would be nice to have a little bit of shade because they never seem to think of shade when they build lands over there.
Well, what she would like then from Star Wars Celebration is that they had an Endor scene where you could go there, you could meet a biker scout. They had the scout walker and all of this also there, and you go and meet. And I didn't know. I've come around, I see this huge line, and you're thinking, what are these people waiting for? You turn around, and they're all this in front of you, and it's like, wow, that is so cool. It's there for 4 days. You know, how much time they must have spent to create, you know, these sort of areas where you can go and see that. Another one, which was Hoth, and they had like the probe droid, and these places were mobbed all the time.
This actually sounds like an incredible event. How happy are you that you got to experience this?
I was so pleased we managed to go. It had been, you know, one of the things, harking back to say 3 years ago, now this is it, is that we've had a lot of conversations about, 3 years ago and in lockdown and all of these things are happening. And if you'd have said to me 3 years ago, I'd be at Star Wars Celebration in London, cheek to jowl with all those people, fellow Star Wars fans who were getting excited about so much that was going on there. It was just an incredible experience.
So next year, they're going to have Star Wars Celebration in Japan. And you said this year was a very international vibe as compared to 2016 when it was more of an English vibe. Do you find that these celebrations tend to take on a certain personality because of where they're located?
Now, when we were there, I spoke to quite a few people saying, oh, the rumor is that when it comes back in 2025, it's going to go to Orlando. And I'm there thinking, well, you know, Star Wars Celebration Orlando, that sounds good. I can work a vacation around that. But when I found it's going to Japan, it's like, okay, that could be, slightly more complicated. But yeah, if I can swing it, I'd love to go. I'd love to go to Japan anyway. But Star Wars Celebration in Japan with those fans, it would be something else.
So as we mentioned, they did announce some new movies. Like, they announced a lot of shows, and I think we're excited for all those shows because, in my personal opinion, they've knocked them all out of the park so far. But what are you thinking about these movies? We're actually going to be exploring some timelines that we never touched before in movie form or television show form. We're going to be going back to the founding of the Jedi Order in one of these movies. What was the reaction to that announcement, and how excited are you about seeing something from not this, 50, 60 year period?
One of the things I've always liked about Star Wars is it was a long time ago, as they say, in a galaxy far, far away. And now you're going to go even longer ago, and that is how this all came about. Like, we were there and we watched sort of the Phantom Menace, and they were explaining it slowly about how the Jedi were back then. But now you're going to see all of it, how it all came about, and that is super exciting. And then you go to the other end, and completely out of the blue, they say Rey's coming back, and I thought that story was done. I thought that was done. I had two conversations that day. Number one is, It's 15 years in the future. How tall is Grogu going to be at that stage? Because yeah, that's it. And you're there thinking, okay, and how are they going to resist turning that into another trilogy? And that's going to be sort of 10, 11, 12 of the Star Wars saga. I don't know. Can you just do a single movie with Rey? I'm not sure. I think the appetite will be too much for them not to say, we're not going to do one, we're going to do three. And Daisy Ridley's well up for it as well. You know, she seemed absolutely thrilled. Yeah, hey, she's going to make a lot of money. I get it. But I think that she genuinely does like sort of the character. She likes Star Wars. She's not the female Harrison Ford, is she?
No, she does not seem to have that same distaste for the movies that made her a lot of money that Harrison Ford had there for a while.
I'm looking for the TV series. I've said to you, Andor. There's obviously this movie about the Mandalorian. Not quite sure how that's going to go. And I would prefer it not to be a movie. I prefer the finale of the Mandalorian stay as it is on Disney Plus. But hey, you know, it's that's what we're going to do. I like the reveal about Grand Admiral Thrawn. I was hoping he was going to be played by Elon Musk, but you know, yeah, if he's played by Lars Mikkelsen again, I'm happy with that too.
I think one of the things about going back and exploring the character of Rey, like Steven and I are old enough to remember how the prequels were received when they were new. And people did not like them. And they got a lot of brushback. And that was before the internet was really what the internet is today. And then, of course, the sequels got a lot of that hate as well. And a lot of it was directed towards Daisy Ridley. I think now, when we see this new set of movies, it might help to bring the sequels along with some people who are hesitant to accept them at a better pace than if we just let there be this really, really long gap in between movies and exploring more of the world, more of this universe that had been created, going back far in time, and then having something that happened even more recently than Rise of Skywalker is sort of making the people who didn't like the sequels very much, they're not the end-all be-all anymore in the universe. So maybe that will help people just accept that those movies exist because, I mean, you know, personally, I loved 2 of the 3. I loved them. And the one that I didn't love is fine. Like, I'm not mad about it or anything. But I would love to see these characters get the respect they deserve because I think there are some really, really good characters from those movies.
Yeah, 100%. I think that if I could have my way, I would like, if there could be 3 films, I'd like the first one to be very focused on Rey and her story and give her the just dues that character deserved. And then to bring more of that sort of, those characters back in. I'd like to see some new characters, of course, because I think that's the thing that will make Star Wars fresh is that they just can bring in new characters off the bat and suddenly there's fandom at it. Like, I can't believe the amount of different people cosplaying just random characters from, you know, Disney Plus, and you're going, wow, you know, that's somebody you've taken a lot of time on a relatively minor character. And I think that's it. You know, Disney have got so many great minds there to produce fantastic characters and make fantastic movies. And if people are going to hate them, do you know what? Let them be. Yeah, for us as Star Wars fans, now I can criticize the prequels because I saw that as a boy, you know, as Star Wars, the first 3 films. And in my own mind, I had how episodes 1, 2, and 3 would have gone. Only I know that. But it wasn't what George Lucas had in mind. But I can't criticize him. They're his characters. Yeah, like I thought that episode 3 was going to be this huge sort of Ben Kenobi and Darth Vader, a massive battle there. And I didn't get it. But you know what? I got that in the TV series. And one of the things I was surprised about is that they didn't say, we're going to come back and we're going to give you Kenobi 2. Because when they said that Ewan McGregor was going to be there, I'm kind of going, and Hayden Christensen's going to be there, I'm going, okay, 2 and 2, and is this going to be some more of that? And maybe they're holding that back. But hey, I really enjoyed that as well. Give me more Vader, give me more Kenobi. I'll be more than pleased.
I loved the Kenobi series. I thought they did that one so well. I know that, like everything in Star Wars, there are people with mixed opinions on it, but I thought that was just riveting television. I was excited to watch the next episode every time. How did you feel about that Kenobi series?
Loved it. Again, people criticize it for being slow, and it could have been a movie, and it could have been 2 hours long. What I just love about Disney Plus, you can see it back there of an evening. I'm not set any time. It has to be on a Wednesday. It's not that you can't binge watch it. You've got to kind of watch it old school, once a week, like we did when we were kids. And you sit there and you get the recap from the previous episode. And by the time the titles hit, you were excited about exactly what's going to happen. And yeah, to see Ewan McGregor back, playing that iconic character, amazing. Loved it.
Now, I'll tell you the truth. I understand that you want to see everything when it's fresh and new. I am in this streaming mindset now where I have to wait till the series has gone through a full season so that I can just binge them the whole time, because I don't want to get stuck in that situation where I'm waiting for next week. Because if I get into one of these shows, man, I am into it.
The reason why is that I'm not a spoilers guy. I can't abide spoilers. Now, I've seen the trailers because obviously I was there. There's a lot going on. But if I'm honest with you, I don't watch trailers for any movies. As far as I'm concerned, trailers are too long. They show too much. And things like comedies. I've seen trailers for comedies. I go and see the movie. I go, wow, all the jokes were there. Well, I didn't need to sit through this for 2 hours.
I totally get where you're coming from on the comedy thing, because that happens so very often where all the good jokes are in the trailer. And sometimes they don't even set them up very well in the movie, so it was funnier in the trailer.
It's very true. So hang on. So did you watch the last season of The Mandalorian and the final episode and not know, spoiler alert, that Luke came back?
Okay. I see what you're asking here, because that was obviously a hard spoiler to avoid. What we did was we watched the entire season the day before the last episode debuted. So we wanted to see the final episode with everybody else. So that's how we watched it. But that is a very good question, because I actually did a podcast episode about that season. So I had to be prepared. So what we did was we watched the whole thing. And then that last night we watched it with everybody else. And you saw the X-Wing pull up. And then you're like, no, this isn't going to happen, right? This isn't going to happen. It can't be this good. And then, boom, you see that green lightsaber light up. And that was one of the coolest moments I've ever seen. And that was on Disney Plus. They used that moment. It didn't have to be in a movie. It was actually probably set up better because it was in a Disney Plus show. So we got all that backstory. When you do take things more methodically, when you do get the chance to stretch out a story, that's when a moment like this feels even bigger, because not everything was action-packed the whole way. You weren't getting big moments every episode, but then you just get this huge moment, and it makes it that much more impactful.
I just remember, like you see the green lightsaber and you go, no. You don't, what's coming in your head. You know what they're doing, but the heart is going, I'm not sure I'm quite ready for this, because suddenly I'm a 12-year-old again. That is it. This is, I've seen Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill in the sequels, but he's just some old dude, It's like, I want to see Luke Skywalker as I remember him as a boy, and he's there, and the CGI was fantastic. And that was, honestly, blew me away.
I was very impressed by the CGI because if they didn't do that right, it was going to fail miserably.
Yeah.
So I just want to, in the few minutes that we have remaining, go back to talking about your vlogs on the A Life in the Parks YouTube channel from Star Wars Celebration and just say some more things that you got a chance to see. Are we going to get to see some cosplay people? Are we going to get to see some vehicles from Star Wars? Like, just tell us what we can expect, because I know anytime we talk about Star Wars on this show, our listenership skyrockets. So I know these people are going to get Star Wars here, but this isn't going to be enough Star Wars for them. So they're going to want to go right over to your vlogs and check out everything that was happening at Star Wars Celebration.
I put up some shorts. YouTube's a bit funny with the shorts. One of the things that was really cool, if you remember in Andor, when the prisoners escaped, and then they get to the edge and they jump into the water, sort of one way out, and they're doing this. There were hundreds and hundreds of people, all in the prisoner outfits, and they ran the whole way along the convention center, chanting, one way out. And it's like, what is going on? And people were just leaving other areas to go and see what this commotion was. And there's a short of that in terms of my vlog. I just get there and I just want to show people exactly how busy it was, how wild the whole of the experience was. You get to see, one thing I really liked was that there's an area where the fans actually create their own areas, for you to have your picture taken with, the cosplayers and all this. Now that was really cool. And again, I think my favorite one of those was back on Endor as well. And they even had suspended a flying Ewok, above this. And it was like, wow, that is super cool. Things like that. The other thing is that there's Hasbro, and they had all of the new toys or figures and all this. And one of the, I suppose I'm a bit too old now, is that Star Wars stuff is now for real sort of toddlers. Back when it was a sort of, when I was getting stuff, it was that sort of 3 to 15 or whatever it was. Whereas now there's toys for much, much younger kids. They had a whole selection of different helmets you could buy for, obviously, The Mandalorian and Stormtroopers and all this. So that was really cool to see as well. One of the things I won't show you in the video, because I can't show you the official merchandise. What I can show you is the line for the official merchandise. Because the line for the official merchandise was 90 minutes long. And I just looked at it and thought, I can't spend 90 minutes in that line. And that's it. You just see these huge lines. There was another huge line for the Funko, and they had a diorama. You can go and see that they're huge Funko Pops. And that was cool. So we show that. And we'd show that there was like an area where you'd sort of see different people being interviewed. And there's some video of that. So who do we have? We had Moff Gideon and Grief Karga for The Mandalorian, and they're there and they're having a chat as well. There was an area upstairs for much smaller kids, and they were sort of they were doing like Star Wars colouring and bits and pieces, and they had like a droid race, and there's kids going around trying to move these droids. But there was just so much to do and see, and go check out the video. I hope you like it. It will give you an idea of what Star Wars Celebration is like, so that hopefully for your listeners in Japan or who are heading to Japan in a couple of years' time, and I'd imagine that the 2 years after that, it'll either go back to Anaheim or, fingers crossed, it'll go to Orlando again. And I'd love to visit when it's in the States, because I think that, again, it'll be a very different vibe.
And make sure you are going to A Life in the Parks on YouTube and subscribing, because a lot of this old video, I'm not one of those people who is opposed to change at Walt Disney World. I like a lot of the new changes. I also know that if they didn't change, I would have no reason to keep going back as much as I return to these parks. However, Every once in a while, it's great to look back and see what the parks were like when I fell in love with them, when I got that nostalgia and developed it. We don't have to live in that nostalgia all the time. We can get new things, and the new things keep driving these parks and making them great. But what I love about your vlogs is you didn't even know you were doing this. You didn't really know you were creating a time capsule. You thought you were creating family memories. And now you're getting to share this with so many of us. And it is a really great service.
Imagine this is that I would have huge camcorders that I'd be lugging around theme parks. Now, I'm English. I'm not designed for Florida heat, let alone being carrying around all this equipment to film rides and just to show people how things are like, but not people on the internet. These are my friends, my family, and and I bet you, yeah, we ought to have people around there. They would think, "What are you showing me?" But in the year 2000, we went to Halloween Horror Nights, and I showed my friends that, and we all met up in 2001 because people did not believe me, even though I showed them what it was like. Because you can't film in the houses, yeah, they're saying, "This is real." I'm saying, "This is real. This is like." We didn't do Halloween here. Like Halloween is a fairly modern sort of thing in the UK. We were far out, like Guy Fawkes Night, which is the 5th of November, V for Vendetta, if you watch the film. But yeah, and that was so much fueled sort of Halloween things. Over here, there are so many Halloween events now in the UK that would have never existed without them being in Orlando, and that people like me coming back and showing people this is what it's like. And now I have people from all over, and it's amazing how many people say to me, "I saw my father in one of your videos."
Stephen from A Life in the Parks, thank you so much.
Obviously, I'd just like to say thank you very much, Rick, for hosting me. It's been a real pleasure.
This has been episode 118 of Tall Guy Talks Travel with Rick Doherty. As always, I will be back with another brand new episode of the show next Thursday. Until then, have a great week.